Something is moving in silence. Something is shifting beyond the visible, and most will only notice when it is already too late. Right now, while the world scrolls and sleeps, an invisible line is being drawn. It is not traced on maps or measured by clocks. It is written in hearts. A separation is taking place without noise, without headlines, without alarms that the flesh can easily recognize. Yet heaven is watching. Angels are attentive. And the soul of humanity is being weighed in a balance that does not appear on any screen. Many feel a strange heaviness they cannot explain. Others feel an unusual urgency stirring deep inside. Few understand what it truly means. Something is happening now that only the spiritually awake can perceive. There is a quiet division forming in homes, in churches, in nations. Two people sit on the same bench, hear the same words, sing the same songs, yet their inner condition could not be more distant. One heart burns softly with a sincere longing. Another is insulated by routine and comfort. Light still shines, but shadows learn to imitate its shape. Truth still speaks, but its voice competes with many convincing echoes. The phenomenon is subtle, like a mist that enters slowly through open windows while everyone believes the air is pure. It does not announce itself with terror, but with familiarity. It does not arrive as an obvious attack, but as a gentle replacement. This invisible movement does not tear down churches. It fills them. It does not remove the language of faith. It dresses itself with it. It does not silence God's name. It multiplies it in empty repetition. While lips proclaim, hearts drift. While hands are lifted, eyes are fixed on mirrors. While crowds grow, depth diminishes. The altar is still there, but the secret place becomes neglected. The oil still exists, but fewer carry it in reserve. Many have light in their lamps for the moment, but no hidden supply for the night that is approaching. Across the earth, a strange calm settles over souls that once trembled easily. Sin no longer shocks. Compromise no longer hurts. Discernment becomes uncomfortable because it demands separation, and separation feels like loss. Yet this is not merely moral decay. It is spiritual anesthesia, a lullaby that gently rocks the conscience to sleep while danger approaches quietly through the dark. People feel safe because they look surrounded by religious language, familiar rituals, and comforting affirmations. Yet safety without vigilance becomes the most dangerous place of all. In the unseen realm, the difference between appearance and reality grows sharper each day. Some carry the name of faith, others carry the fire of it. Some hold the form, others hold the life. And heaven does not read what is written on signs or profiles. Heaven reads what is etched into the hidden places of the soul. The door is still open, but fewer notice its quiet movement. It does not slam, it does not shout. It closes the way dusk falls over a field, slowly, almost tenderly, until the light is simply gone. Many sense that something is changing, but cannot name it. They feel distance in prayer, where once there was warmth. They feel dryness, where once there was flow. They feel noise where once there was clarity, yet instead of seeking oil, they adjust the light. Instead of returning to the secret place, they decorate the outer court. Instead of pressing in, they explain away the hunger and settle for spiritual echoes. The invisible phenomenon does not steal faith all at once. It dilutes it. It replaces the weight of glory with the weight of routine. It exchanges trembling for comfort, reverence for familiarity, surrender for control, and still mercy whispers. Still, the wind of God moves quietly over those who are willing to listen. Still, the door remains open, for now, but its movement is no coincidence. What is happening is not random. It is not merely psychological. It is not simply cultural. It is prophetic. It is the fulfillment of warnings given long before this very hour, now unfolding in slow motion before distracted eyes. The division is not coming. It has already begun, and this is only the beginning of what must yet be revealed. The sensation left behind by this quiet division still lingers in the air, like the echo of distant thunder that warns of a coming storm. A restlessness remains in the soul, a question that does not go away. If something invisible is separating hearts even now, then the most urgent question becomes this: who warned us that it would be so? In the midst of ordinary days, Jesus spoke extraordinary warnings. He did not raise his voice to frighten the crowds, yet his words carried the weight of eternity. He spoke of vigilance to those who felt secure. He spoke of readiness to those who assumed time was abundant. He spoke of watchfulness to those who believed their lamp would never run dry. His messages were not wrapped in panic, but in love that urgently seeks to wake those who are drifting towards sleep. Again and again, he painted pictures of ordinary life suddenly interrupted by divine turning points. Fields where some continue working while others are taken. Homes where daily routines are broken by an unforeseen separation. Gatherings where some are received and others remain outside wondering what just occurred. His warnings were never about fear of the world, but about deception within the heart. He warned that many would say they were well, yet remain deeply unprepared. He spoke of people who would be certain of their own readiness, confident in their religious sound, familiar with spiritual language, yet strangers to the inner posture of surrender. He described a time when appearance would substitute for intimacy, when activity would replace obedience, when noise would drown out the quiet voice that once guided souls through the narrow path of life. Today, these warnings no longer sound distant. They walk our streets, they sit in our pews, they whisper through our conversations. Churches are full, yet many hearts are crowded with distractions. Songs rise loudly, yet secret prayer grows faint. The language of blessing is abundant, yet the language of repentance becomes rare. Many no longer tremble at the thought of standing before God, because the idea of holiness has slowly been shrunk to fit personal comfort. The world no longer needs to persecute faith aggressively when it can soothe it gently into harmlessness. There are those who believe they are awake because they remain busy. Others believe they are secure because they remain surrounded by religious culture. But Jesus warned that the most dangerous kind of sleep is not physical, it is spiritual. It is the condition of being active while disconnected, confident while drifting, illuminated on the surface while empty in the deep places. He spoke of people who would knock on a door at the last moment, convinced they belonged inside, only to discover that familiarity with the house was not the same as intimacy with the one who dwells within it. Even now, this deception unfolds quietly. Many say, "I am fine," while neglecting the slow erosion of their inner fire. Many say, "I have time," while the door continues its nearly imperceptible movement. Many say, "Everyone is doing this," forgetting that the path of truth has never been measured by crowds. Comfort becomes a false mediator between the soul and God. Ease becomes the proof of blessing. And anything that disturbs peace is labeled unnecessary, negative, or extreme. Thus the warnings of Jesus are softened until they no longer awaken, only decorate sermons and reinforce assumptions. Yet his voice still speaks beneath the noise. It speaks in the uneasy silence after prayer fades too quickly. It speaks in the quiet grief of those who remember deeper days. It speaks in the longing that entertainment cannot satisfy and success cannot quiet. It speaks in the subtle conviction that something essential is being traded for something convenient. And to those willing to listen, the warning is not harsh, it is merciful. It is the shout of love before the door closes. It is the lamp still shining in the darkness before night fully settles. It is the final kindness of heaven calling the soul back to truth before the separation becomes irreversible. This, then, is the warning. It is not merely about what will happen someday. It is about what is unfolding now. When the refining begins, it rarely announces itself with thunder. It arrives like pressure in hidden places, like a tightening in the soul where comfort once lived freely. What is not rooted starts to loosen. What is not real starts to crack. Things that once seemed essential begin to fall away without explanation. Relationships change. Desires shift. Familiar sources of strength no longer satisfy. The heart feels exposed, as though a gentle but relentless hand is removing every false covering. Many interpret this season as loss, abandonment, or failure. But heaven knows it as purification. In refinement, what is shallow cannot survive. The fire does not come to destroy the gold, but to separate it from what never truly belonged to it. The wind does not rise to uproot the living tree, but to break away what is already dead. The silence does not fall to punish the soul, but to draw it away from noise and into a deeper dependence. In this hour, many feel alone even while surrounded. They feel misunderstood even while being loved. They feel stripped even while being prepared. This is not rejection. This is the narrowing of the way. This is the mercy of God removing what would weigh the soul down in the final crossing. There were others who walked this path before. A man once built an ark while the world mocked his obedience. The rain had not yet fallen, but the obedience had already begun. A family once fled a city that would not listen, instructed not to look back at what was being judged. Many long for the rescue, without enduring the separation that precedes it. Yet deliverance and refinement have always traveled together. God has never preserved what refused to be purified. He has never carried forward what would not let go of what was behind. The hearts that are being refined now often pass through quiet trials. Their prayers feel heavier. Their tears fall without audience. Their strength seems hidden rather than celebrated. They learn to walk without applause, to obey without affirmation, to trust without visible assurance. The fire touches motives before it touches behavior. It questions why we serve, why we seek, why we believe we are worthy to stand. It exposes the difference between loving God for who He is and loving Him for what He gives. In this process, many comforts quietly leave, not because they were sins, but because they became substitutes. Some feel as though familiar voices grow distant. Others feel as though they no longer belong where they once felt at home. There is an ache that comes with refinement, but it is not the ache of abandonment. It is the ache of transition, the ache of being prepared for a shifting that cannot yet be seen. Those who endure it often feel misunderstood by both the world and the religious crowd. They no longer fit the patterns that once defined them, yet they have not fully stepped into the shape of what is forming. They stand between what was and what will be, held in tension by the hands of God. If you feel this pressure, this isolation, this quiet inner shaking, it may not be a sign that you are lost. It may be the sign that you are being called closer. The furnace is never the destination, it is the passage. The night is never the home, it is the bridge to morning. What is being refined today is being preserved for tomorrow. What is being stripped now is being lightened for flight. The separation hurts only because attachment has weight, and eternal movement requires freedom. Hold fast in this hour. Do not abandon the narrow path because it feels lonely. Do not return to old comforts because the fire feels intense. The hand that refines is the same hand that rescues. The process that presses is the same process that prepares. Faith that endures the fire will not be shaken by the storm that follows. And those who allow the refining now will not be surprised by the separation that comes with glory. The most dangerous traps are never loud. They do not arrive with the smell of smoke or the sound of chains. They arrive as pillows. They arrive as warm light. They arrive as things that feel safe, familiar, and reasonable. The final deception does not come dressed as rebellion. It comes dressed as balance. It does not scream error. It whispers comfort. It does not deny God with words. It replaces him with subtle substitutes that feel harmless, even virtuous. There is a song being sung over many souls in this hour, a quiet lullaby. It tells the heart that urgency is unnecessary, that tomorrow will always be available, that seriousness can wait. It tells the believer that rest is the same as surrender, that tolerance is the same as love, that comfort is the same as peace. And slowly, without noticing, discernment dulls, conviction softens. The edge of holiness becomes rounded until it no longer cuts through compromise, but rests beside it. The enemy rarely pushes souls toward obvious darkness. He invites them into well-lit rooms where nothing feels threatening. He decorates the cage so beautifully that the prisoner forgets there was once a sky. He uses overconfidence more than doubt. He uses religious familiarity more than open rebellion. He convinces many that because they once knocked on the door will always remain open. He persuades hearts that because they once burned, they will always burn without fresh oil. There were once 10 who waited together. All appeared the same. All carried lamps. All expected the moment to come. But the difference was never in the lamp. It was in what could not be seen. Oil hidden in reserve. Depth not displayed. Preparation no one could applaud. When the sudden cry came, the separation was instant and irreversible. Not because the door was unjust, but because readiness had quietly been neglected long before the moment of testing arrived. There was once a city that believed fire would never touch it because it had always stood. People built, planted, negotiated, celebrated. Life continued uninterrupted until it did not. One heart was instructed not to look back, not because memory was forbidden, but because attachment was deadly. The temptation to glance backward is the temptation of the final hour, the desire to keep one foot in the old while stepping toward the new. Many lose their future because they refuse to release their past. There was once a community that believed itself rich while it was starving. It believed itself clothed while it was naked. It believed itself awake while it was asleep. Nothing destroys a soul faster than false certainty. The moment a heart no longer examines itself, it becomes vulnerable not to open sin, but to quiet drift. The illusion of being already ready is the most efficient sedative in the spiritual world. Today, the same patterns repeat behind new faces and new technologies. Distraction masks as productivity, self-confidence masks as faith, entertainment masks as rest, noise masks as life. And many grow uncomfortable with silence because silence exposes what the lullaby has been trying to hide. When the noise fades, the hunger becomes audible. When the lights dim, the lack of oil becomes visible. When the illusion breaks, the cost of neglect becomes undeniable. This is the nature of the final test. It does not force the door closed. It convinces the soul there is no rush to pass through it. It does not drag anyone into sleep. It simply makes sleep feel deserved. And the danger is not that evil will appear powerful. The danger is that it will appear kind, reasonable, and harmless. Examine the heart in this hour, not with fear, but with honesty, not with despair, but with clarity. Ask what comforts have grown too loud. Ask what convictions have grown too quiet. Ask what fire has been replaced by routine and what sacrifice has been exchanged for convenience. The test is not about perfection. It is about truth in the hidden places. Do not let the lullaby finish its song. Do not let drowsiness decide what only vigilance can protect. Awaken now, while the door is still moving and not yet closed. Awaken while mercy still whispers. Awaken while the light still reaches the threshold. In this hour, living with readiness is not about adopting a religious posture in public, but about returning to a secret place in private. The oil that sustains the lamp is not produced under stage lights, but in hidden rooms where no one applauds. It is formed in whispered prayers when words feel insufficient. It is formed in quiet tears when no one is watching. It is formed when the soul chooses depth over display and intimacy over image. Vigilance is not loud, it is steady. It is the daily decision to remain tender before God, even when the world rewards indifference. Many confuse activity with devotion, but the heart is not renewed by motion. It is renewed by surrender. Prayer that flows only from habit slowly loses its weight, but prayer born from hunger reshapes the inner life. Fasting is not the denial of food alone. It is the refusal to feed on what dulls the spirit. Confession is not merely an admission of failure, it is the reopening of channels that have been quietly blocked by pride and fatigue. Silence is not emptiness, it is the space where the soul relearns how to listen, and the word, when read not for information but for transformation, becomes a mirror that restores identity. There is a vast difference between knowing about God and walking with Him. Religiosity builds routines. Relationship rebuilds the heart. One young woman once filled her schedule with ministry and her phone with messages of encouragement for others, yet her own prayer life had quietly withered. When the emptiness finally became impossible to ignore, she withdrew not to perform, but to seek. In the quiet, she found not condemnation, but a gentle invitation back to the fire she once carried. Her service did not cease, it was purified. A man once prided himself on moral discipline, believing his consistency proved his stability. Yet in the hidden places, fear still ruled him. When pressure came, his strength failed not because he was sinful, but because he was self-sufficient. Only when he finally knelt in honest dependence did he discover that endurance flows not from control, but from trust. Another soul wandered for years chasing relief through distraction, numbing the ache with endless noise. Only in solitude did she realize that the pain she fled was the very doorway through which restoration was waiting. This is how the soul is kept awake, not by shallow intensity that burns out quickly, but by quiet faithfulness that endures. Not by public declarations alone, but by private obedience, not by fear of being left behind, but by love that refuses to drift away. The oil is renewed through attention, through repentance that is not dramatic but continual, through worship that is not performative but sincere, through choices that favor eternity when convenience calls loudly. Watchfulness in this hour looks ordinary to the world. It is the parent who prays when the house is asleep. It is the worker who resists compromise when no one would ever know. It is the believer who turns off the noise not because it is forbidden, but because it is unnecessary. It is the heart that remains soft in a culture that rewards hardness. It is the soul that stays awake not because it fears darkness, but because it longs for the coming light. And this separation that is unfolding is not cruelty. It is mercy in motion. It is God drawing near to what is willing to be drawn. It is the narrowing of the path not to exclude, but to protect those who choose to walk it. The door still stands open not to test curiosity, but to invite return. Every moment of conviction is an invitation. Every inner stirring is a call. Every sense of hunger is evidence that grace is still reaching. This is how to live now. Not in panic, but in purpose. Not in dread, but in devotion. Not in noise, but in nearness. The separation ahead is not meant to terrify the faithful. It is meant to confirm them. This is not the closing of a door of punishment. It is the quiet completion of a door of mercy. What is happening is not the rage of heaven, but the final invitation of love. The separation ahead is not rooted in cruelty. It is rooted in kindness that refuses to force the unwilling into a glory they no longer desire. The door of grace has stood open through storms, through rebellion, through delay, through wandering hearts and repeated returns. It has remained open through mercy upon mercy, but even mercy has a season, and that season is now reaching its final movement. The time is short. The signs are clear. The bridegroom is near, not as a threat but as a promise, not as terror but as fulfillment. The trembling in the air is not fear, it is expectation. The heaviness many feel is not despair, It is the weight of transition. Something eternal is approaching what has long been temporary. What is fading feels heavy only because it once held the heart. What is coming feels distant only because the eyes are still adjusting to a brighter horizon. Do not misread this hour. Doom is not the message. Urgency is the message. Readiness is the message. Mercy is still the message. The door does not close with violence. It closes with quiet finality. Those who linger outside will not be shocked by thunder. They will be shocked by silence, by the sudden absence of what they assumed would always be available, by the realization that familiarity was mistaken for intimacy and proximity was mistaken for union. Stay awake, stay soft, stay ready. Not with perfection, but with surrender. Not with performance, but with presence. Not with fear, but with love that chooses loyalty when drifting feels easier. The ones who enter will not be those who spoke the loudest, but those who listened the closest. Not those who appeared the strongest, but those who remained the most dependent. Not those who impressed crowds, but those who guarded secret flame. If your heart trembles as you listen, that trembling is not condemnation. It is calling. If your spirit feels stirred, that stirring is not anxiety, it is response. If you feel the quiet ache to return, that ache is not weakness, it is invitation. The door of grace is still open now, precisely because heaven desires none to be lost in darkness by surprise. The hour is late, but mercy has not yet withdrawn. The doorway still holds light. The threshold still welcomes movement. Step closer. Lay down what weighs you. Loosen what binds you to what is passing. Lift your eyes from what is fading and fix them on what is forming. The door of grace is closing, but it is still open, and you are still being called. Stay awake, stay pure, stay ready.